Hey there, my friend. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project podcast. And boy, do we have an amazing conversation for you today. We are joined by one of our very own Fit Fathers, Chris Ward. And Chris, like so many guys in our brotherhood, is just a phenomenal guy who has gone through a lot of challenges and has used this program and, quite frankly, just the right kind of mindset of approaching life with new possibilities to create such profound changes in a very short period of time. Chris has had the program for some time, but he got very serious in December of 2022, and we're recording this in March of 2023. So he's been on the program for about 4 months. And in that time, he's made phenomenal physical changes. You can see some images if you're watching this on YouTube or something like that. But just know, like, he's dropped his waist, he's built muscle, he looks so much more vibrant and energetic in his face and his body. But also, Chris has been going through a major life shift, and the word that he uses is a renaissance of sorts. Recently, he had a 15-year marriage with his wife that ended, and he has two 11-year-old kids, as you're going to learn. And as you can imagine, whether or not you've gone through divorce yourself, it is a lot of changes that happen financially, emotionally, physically, with the stress levels and all of that. And what happens to many people is a lot of challenges hit them, like life hits them in the face and they fall down. They start to have the woe is me victim mindset. But Chris has pretty much done the exact opposite. He's used this as a chance, this shakeup in his life, to rebuild, to reconnect with God, to just like get his life back on track. And certainly in the physical domain by improving his nutrition with the program, by doing hard workouts, but also by putting in the work to examine and reflect and pray and connect. So if you're looking for some inspiration on what's possible in your mid-40s and your 50s, just look no further than Chris. I mean, he's totally changed his life in 3 months, and he's so fired up to continue going. So Chris, I'm sure you'll listen to this point. You have my deep respect for everything that you've gone through, that you're going through, and where you're heading. You are a perfect example of a fit father. And for all the other brothers listening to this right now, I am just so grateful that we are here together as this community, sharing these stories and really just elevating one another. It is just really a privilege for me to be able to be here with you guys in these conversations, and today to present Chris Ward to the Brotherhood on this episode of the Fit Father Project podcast. Enjoy today's episode. All right, Chris, welcome officially to the Fit Father Project podcast, my friend. I'm so happy you're here.
Great. Glad to be here. It's an honor speaking with you today, Dr. A.
Yeah, and I mean, for those who are listening in audio, they don't get to see that you have the classic blue FFP shirt on, so I appreciate that. The color looks great on you, by the way.
Excellent. Wearing it proudly. Thank you.
So to kick this off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to all the guys that are listening, your name, your age, where you're from, and anything you'd like to share about your family and what you do for work.
Sure, absolutely. Well, once again, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. My name is Chris Ward. I am 47 years young. I was born in Delaware, moved to Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida, when I was 11 years old. That would be 1986. Grew up in Fort Pierce, went to elementary school, middle school, high school. From there, have a lot of friends, still local, still living in Fort Pierce right now. So fast forwarding, I moved to Tallahassee, Florida to attend Florida State University. So I was there for a couple of years, had a great time, graduated with my elementary education degree. Decided pretty quickly that I did not want to go into teaching, so I pursued my master's degree in instructional technology. I moved to Tampa, Florida, went to the University of South Florida, and graduated there. Fast forwarding a couple years, moved down to South Florida, worked for a number of years down there, lived in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Hollandale Beach. In 2007, I was married. 2011 is when my wife and I had our twins. I have a boy and a girl twin. They're 11 years old. So in 2012, we decided to move back to this area, Fort Pierce, to raise the kids. This is where my immediate family is. So wanted them to be, number one, have the family support. Number two, to be able to have that, have the kids be raised with their family. So been here ever since. So
nice.
So I think that kind of gives you a general sense of where I'm at.
Yeah, it does.
As far as work, I am an instructional designer. What that means is I develop instructional programs, mostly online training for companies, corporations. Also do a lot of graphic design work, and anything related to learning.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so maybe I'm a little even nervous to ask you what you think about our instructional design of our program with your expertise, but maybe we'll get there.
Sure. Yeah.
But first off, I'd love you to tell everyone now, how'd you find out about the program and what was really motivating you at the time to get started with something like Fit Father Project?
Okay, great. Yeah, great question. I think it's pretty similar to a lot of the stories that I've heard listening to other brothers on the podcast. Basically, just kind of stumbled upon an ad, I think through Facebook or YouTube, and I loved your approach. It wasn't a real salesy technique or strategy. I'm like, all right, your credentials spoke for themselves, and you just had a lot of really good free stuff that I wanted to try out. So I did that for a couple of weeks. A lot of the videos that you provided on YouTube, and did that. I think last November you had the Black Friday sale, I think, for phase 1. So I'm like, you know what? Let me give this a shot. I think this is definitely something down my alley. So I did that. Learned more about the program and the philosophy, and I think in December I decided to go ahead and take advantage of the lifetime membership. So that's really kind of what got me started.
Nice.
With the program. Yeah.
And so you've been cranking on it pretty much this year, very focused, going through the phases.
That's right. Yep. So December up until now, relatively new. So
it's cool. So we have basically let's just say a 3-4 month snapshot of following the program. And I want to ask you, in that amount of time so far, what kind of results have you seen? How has this program changed your life? And I know that's a broad question, so we could break it down in terms of results with your body and your fitness, but maybe some mental stuff too. Let's just start to unpack that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think if we focused specifically on the physical side of things, that's really what got me started, obviously. But there's been so much growth mentally and spiritually following this program, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But regarding the physical transformation, kind of stepping back a little bit, over the course of the years, I think most guys, the weight kind of crept up on me. I started working out when I was 18 years old. Didn't really have a specific program per se. Just kind of went to the gym, worked out with my buddies, tried to get the beach muscles up. Didn't really see too much at that time. Well, when I moved to Florida State, it was around 1998. That's when the Body for Life program, I think, started. That's when I discovered it. And, that was something very unique in the sense that you saw average people transform their bodies in 90 days. I'm like, that looks great. I mean, the proof is right there. Mm-hmm. It also helped that they had a $100,000 grand prize, so that was external motivation for me. So, I went ahead and just really committed myself to that 90-day challenge. And I went from 220 pounds to 188 pounds in a matter of 90 days. And, it was one of those things where, I didn't really have a strong self-awareness of where I was at, 220 pounds. I was mid-20s at the time. I thought I was in pretty good shape. Well, I didn't realize how, what the potential that I had until I went through that transformation process, right? So the 90 days happened, and kind of throughout the years, I still followed that program, but it wasn't necessarily sustainable. I kind of lost interest. But the problem was, with the eating plan, it was eating 6 small meals a day. Yeah. Well, I kind of kept that eating philosophy, and I didn't really carry over the exercise. So I could get away with that in my 20s, my early 30s, but reflecting and looking back on a lot of the pictures, when I hit my mid 30s, early 40s, I was my mental perception versus reality was flawed. It definitely didn't line up. And, I think that in my head, I was in good shape, but I wasn't, So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, once I became a dad, 2012, I had an office job, did not do a lot of working out during the infancy years with my kids. I tried to, but, it definitely was not very strenuous workout. There was no plan, no consistency. And again, just my weight fluctuated. Sometimes it would go up all the way up to 245 pounds. I think the heaviest I got was about 250 pounds. And once I hit that level, I'm like, oh, I better do something about this. And then I would do like a 30, 90 day, whatever. And, lose the weight, but it was just yo-yoing.
Yeah.
And again, that mental perception was I'm still in good shape. 220 pounds to 240 pounds is pretty much the same in my head, right?
Yeah.
So, fast forwarding now that I'm into my 40s, I'm 47 right now. Once I got into my early 40s, I started to, in the back of my mind, that switch happened where I'm like, all right, I'm not a young buck anymore. I better start really taking this a little bit serious, more serious, because I'm not getting any younger. And one thing I didn't mention was my dad had a stroke at the age of 45. So that thought process, that was in the back of my head. But again, it didn't really align. He was a smoker, bad diet, a lot of stress through work. And I was working out, exercising, I don't smoke, and limited stress. So there was, not necessarily that correlation. There was no health markers indicating that I was going to have a stroke, but that time frame, that date of 45 was really creeping up on me. So that was in the back of my mind, but there was really no substantial change that I made. Well, 2022 hit last year. I had a huge life change happen. After a 15-year marriage, my wife and I divorced. So that was a huge blow. So the stress levels, just basically my world getting thrown upside down.
Yeah.
I really just, I don't want to say I hit rock bottom, but I did. If I really just reflecting on it, I'm like, wow, this is severe stress, that's happening in my life, and just I'm going to have to do something. So there's many different areas of my life that I knew that I had to number one, refocus my relationship with God. I've been doing going status quo, kind of coasting. Lord, I'll call you when I need you type of thing, but when you hit rock bottom, when something like this happens, divorce happens, it was a wake-up call. So my connection with God really was restored. All right, and then going back to the physical thing, perspective, I realized I'm a single guy again. So there was that motivation to kind of get back into the shape. So that's where we're at right now. That was my main motivation to join the Fit Father Project, was to get back into better shape. And I kind of just went back into that mode of, I'm just a big guy. I hit my ceiling. I'm not going to be able to transform my body. And that was kind of the mindset that I had, where I'm just going to go back to where I was before. But going through just within this a little over 3 month period, I'm just shocked at the amount of physical transformation that's happened. Sometimes I just kind of wake up and kind of pinch my belly just to see if I'm, is this real? Like there's nothing there, this is great. So that is, just from the physical side of things. It's just been a transformative process. But also, just by listening to your podcasts, by reading the literature that you have, and just the support structure that you've created, it is really has been strengthening my mental game, which really is where everything I think really stems from, And I think specifically listening to your podcast with Connor Beaton, I've listened to that probably 10 times, and every time I listen to it, I glean some new wisdom. And I went ahead and bought his book. I'm going through his book right now, and just kind of listening to a lot of the wisdom that you were giving, a lot of the commentary, and just what he was saying about. Number one, that the concept of the shadow, of realizing that, man, how much hurt, how many emotions, how many life experiences have I been shoving into that black hole, that shadow, that I really need to uncover.
Yeah.
So in addition to this journey that I'm taking physically, that is also going to be what I'm doing over the course of the year and beyond, is to really identify the emotional and mental side of things for me, and just to really grow and just look my fear in the face, and really, number one, uncover those issues, and just to really come up with ways and strategies to grow, so that way that the physical embodiment, as you said in that interview, aligns with my mental perspective. So,
man, you have my deep respect. What a journey you've been on. Integrated journey. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's super cool to see. And also, I imagine pretty shocking this has all happened in such a short amount of time, but also a testament what's possible with a lot of focused effort and the right support structures in place.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I want to talk about, I guess maybe just because of your past history with something like Body for Life, which 6 small meals per day, high intensity workouts that are smart, and some of the tenets of that program. How was this different for you going through FF30X? A little compare and contrast, or like what stuck out as maybe more relevant to your life right now, or just more effective than what you tried in the past with our particular methodology for guys over 40?
I think what really stuck out to me was, number one, just at the very beginning, just the focus on nutrition, without any talk about working out or exercise. The main focus was getting your diet straightened up. Right? That was a big thing for me, because like I said before, I've always, or maybe I didn't say this, but I've always had an issue with overeating. Just if something is in front of me, I'm going to eat it. There's no control, and sometimes I do. Once that mental switch happens, if I'm on a transformation workout, whatever, that's when I hit the switch. But for the way that you have it laid out, it's so simple and clear, and that's one of the main things I think has really helped me stick with it is the diet, because I know people say it's 80%, but for me, I believe it's 90%. If it's a huge thing. And once I started to get my diet and just the weight, after it took a while. If I was looking at the scale, I have everything written down. It took probably about 6 weeks for me to actually see the scale go down. However, thank God I was doing other measurements. I was doing waist measurements, and I actually, even though I lost 2 pounds on the scale, I lost 2 inches off my waist. So that was very encouraging, and just seeing that that progress. And otherwise, just looking at the scale, I probably would have been a little bit discouraged if that was my main form of measurement. But I think that it's one of the things that you encouraged us to do.
Well, I think that's a good just note for everyone listening, is like to have multiple ways of measuring progress and to find what's working. Obviously, if the scale's not moving and your waist is not going down, there's something that needs to change in the plan. But I'm sure you had both the waist measurements, probably your performance on the workouts.
Oh, yeah.
Probably overall just general sense of how well you're feeling, like subjective well-being stuff.
Sure.
and like some other metrics.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I think the other thing that really stuck out to me was, in addition to the nutrition, the workouts are simple, but really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the Apex 10, I'm thinking in my head, this is it. And I think a lot of guys are like that, like, that's it. But man, once you get in there, I have to really ensure that I'm not cussing like a sailor when I get into that 7 to 10 range, because it was brutal. But it's amazing that after, I don't know, 2 weeks, I'm getting through this. I'm just pushing through the pain, and I just started to really just see the strength go up. One of the side benefits was, when it came to doing pull-ups, I've always, over the past, 5-10 years, whenever I do pull-ups, I was in that 5 to 6 range. I couldn't do any more. Sometimes I would do like, assisted band workouts, do 10 to 12. But again, I kind of just, like, I'm old, maybe it's just not going to happen. And probably halfway through phase 1, I think when we got into the big 5, that was when we incorporated pull-ups. And it was like I was 25-year-old Chris again. I was doing 12 pull-ups, and there was no strain at all in my tendons. And I mean, I just felt great. So it was just like, holy cow, I mean, something is happening. Something really good is happening. So that was just, those wins right there, those little things like that just have been keeping me encouraged and just on track. And I think the other thing is, with the amount of water that we drink, I pee a lot, so I wake up, at least one time a night. And I've always had, prior to this, but when I get up in the mornings or at night, before I started the program, I probably looked like an 85-year-old man, just creaking and just like, oh God. But now I'm just like a spry cat. I can just like jump right up. There's no aches, pains. It's amazing, and I'm just like, again, just like amazing myself that, I feel like I've hit the fountain of youth at 47, so it's been phenomenal.
That's
again,
so
just
cool.
it really is, yeah.
That's so cool. And I think one thing that stood out to me in your share, just like as an overall theme, is in the process of beginning a program, or maybe even any learning journey that has transformation as the end goal, it's like you take action in some plan, and then there are certain moments where you start to see traction or progress and results that start to shift your mindset. So like the pull-ups was one of them. The feeling of no joint pain when you're jumping up and feeling just more hydrated and energized. The waist circumference. It's like there are these little wins that end up being very pivotal. Even though they seem small, they're shifting the mindset. And when you build enough of those, then the mindset really starts to change. And I know you're still on the tip of that spear as you continue through. But it's very apparent to see how these small little bits of proof and evidence really can shift a mindset. And a mindset, meaning something that's been set in old beliefs of limitation, has to be shifted out, has to be shaken up, has to be cracked and broken up. And you basically create the proof through your own action. And that's what you've been doing.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to talk about like the pain of the workouts a little bit too. What's that taught you? And I know pain's an interesting word because maybe it's not you're not talking about debilitating joint pain, but just like it's hard. And has that shifted you into the mindset of like doing more hard things? Has that carried over into other areas of life? Can we speak into that a little bit?
Pain is a word that I'm just looking at your Unbreakable. I'm working through this, and pain has been a common theme for me in the past year. Obviously, starting from the divorce and whatnot. But I've always been, I think everybody, as you said, we're apprehensive. We do not want to experience pain, and we'll do anything that we possibly can to avoid it. And I've been doing that pretty much all my life. Whether it is being a fearful kid who's afraid of learning how to swim because I'm going to drown, or getting up in front of people to speak in public speaking, there's always been something like that. I don't know if it's nature versus nurture. I'm going to probably say it's a nature thing for me, but I've always battled that. So that those pain points, whether it's public speaking or whether it's working out, I've tried to avoid. And specifically with the workout side of things, my workout before Fit Father Project was, I don't want to push myself more than, like, if I'm working out 30 minutes, then that's too much. I'm wasting my time. My heart rate, the majority of my working out was strength training. Nothing very progressive. Sometimes I would, I did the starting strength program and never really pushed it further than that. I would get bored with the workouts and always look for something new and exciting, and just never really sticking with it. But with through phase one, that day one, I felt that pain. And before that mental switch in my brain, I would probably not push myself. I would maybe stop at 7 or 8. But I said, you know what? I am not doing that. I am going to push myself, because through pain, we grow. Mm-hmm. And that's physically and mentally. And that's something that, again, I'm really working on and learning. If I didn't push myself to work harder, to push through the pain, of going through those Apex 10 workouts, and the great destroyers kicking my butt now, and I don't look forward to it. And I think that's a good note for a lot of new guys, because you kind of see that it's a common theme in the Brotherhood Facebook pages. I don't feel like doing it. Well, who cares what you feel? Push through your feelings and just do it. Because at the end, man, once I get through that workout, I just feel awesome. And again, it's just another win, another layer that I'm building towards success. And I don't think I've one time in one workout that I didn't push myself and actually do it.
I think a reflection on that is, it almost seems, when you're sharing that the pain and discomfort and the strain and the pushing through, the uncomfortability is the same. It's half of the triumph that you feel on the other side of it. And it's like, right, in the pain is the seed of that triumph and feeling of accomplishment. And I think if we can start to think of them more holistically instead of separate things, I think there's something to be said about that bigger picture mindset. And also, I think a lot of guys fall into the trap of, like, just listening to their mental chatter constantly. Right. And there are a lot of bad patterns, like, oh man, I had a big day at work, I'm stressed, I'm just gonna go eat this thing, or I'll skip this today, or I'll do XYZ. And, like, when you start really believing your weak thoughts and let that kind of guide your decisions, I mean, that's really easy to fall into a rut. But you're doing something very different here. You're being conscious about, I have a higher goal than this momentary discomfort, and I'm approaching this willingly. And in doing so, it's almost like a little bit of a self-sacrifice, a sacrifice of that weak mindset on this table here. On the other side of that, you get to experience, like, a renewal, a strengthening, a triumph. And then, I think it does change the mind over time. And then ultimately, you start to become more intrinsically motivated to work out. So it's really cool, the kind of psychology that you're elucidating through all this. It's powerful.
Absolutely, yes. I think you mentioned it in one of your podcasts. It's that neural grooving. Yeah. I'm developing those neural grooves, and what I was apprehensive to do 4-5 months ago, I'm actually looking forward to doing it now. Specifically, the fasting portion of it. Yeah. I never thought fasting would be in my vocabulary. I thought that happened during the biblical days. I know Jesus did it and all that, but it was not going to be for me, because I would probably die, or die of starvation or whatnot. But after listening to your podcast of the anabolic versus catabolic, and the actual health benefits of fasting, and then just kind of reaching out through the Brotherhood, hey, you can do this. It's not that big a deal. If you're already doing intermittent fasting, you'll be able to do another 6 hours. Yeah. And I'm actually fasting. I'm doing the 2-day fast now. I'm actually fasting until 6:45. So I'm nice. Definitely ready to eat, but it's hunger is not driving my decisions anymore. which is a beautiful thing. I'm in control, and I'm not going to say that I'm perfect with it, but I'm pretty close to being perfect with it, and it's because it's a decision that I'm making.
Yeah, and you're noticing hunger as a sensation. I think it's we are in a society where we like have lots of different emotions. Sometimes we feel angry, and we learn how to self-regulate and not like slam our car into someone else on the road or to lash out in an inappropriate place. But hunger is something different. We've kind of like, a lot of us are chained to this idea that I'm hungry, and immediately that leads to a compulsion that I must eat. And fasting's so interesting because it creates a little space between stimulus and response and gives you the ability to exert conscious willpower, and you get a lot of health benefits. So I love that you're experiencing that. And one other thing that comes up for me is, I think there's an old motto, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I think that's completely bullshit. And I think it's bullshit because I see it every day with guys like you and in the program. It's like, you're coming up on the back part of your 40s, about to be 50. And like, you used to have a mindset of, maybe this is just how it is. But now you're doing so many new things like MRT workouts, fasting, all these other things you're exploring. And I think part of the value of the program, and I'd like you to speak into this if it's true for you, is just novelty in itself. It's the fact that you're doing new things. You're breathing new energy, new focus, new enthusiasm into your life. And for you specifically, it seems like it's really kind of coming into fruition with the big changes you've had to your family structure and all this. So it's like, I wonder, like, how much of it is just the novelty and excitement too of like following a new program and doing something for the betterment of you. I think that's transformational, just in your commitment to do that and experiencing new things in its own right.
Absolutely, and I think one of the genius things about this program is it is constantly changing. So, throughout the different phases, I started off with the Apex 10, got that under my belt. Now it went to
Double Trouble, I think.
Double Trouble, and now I was like, holy cow, it's going to get worse. All right, and then I started to get used to it, and then the Great Destroyer. I'm like, I've already been doing 1 through 10. What's 5 through 10 down to 5? But it's extremely hard. And there's so many different ways of pushing yourself. So if you through the time frame or through the actual weight that you use. So it is a very humbling experience too. So I'm using 10-pound dumbbells, but some of the workouts with the Great Destroyer, I increased it to 20 pounds per your suggestion. And it's a brand, it's a fresh way of doing things, and I think I'm going to be entering into the next phase of phase 2, I believe. So there's always something new. I think it's carb cycling is going to be next.
Yep.
And I'm really excited because I'm a lifetime member. So I'm like, okay, I know it was recommended that once I get through this, you can look forward to doing the OSM workouts, which is going to be nice because it looks like it's very similar to what I was doing before. So there's going to be that constant, change and growth, and I'm looking forward to just continuing to strip off the body fat to wherever it goes, and then kind of rebuilding. And I say that, but I feel like I'm actually bigger now. Because now that you can actually see some of the definition, it's just like it's amazing. It really is.
And that's great that now that you're starting OSM, when you do start OSM leaner, it's something we hugely recommend because so many guys want to jump into lifting the big weights right away. But like also all that metabolic conditioning workouts you've been doing with the circuits and the weights, like you're probably gotten much stronger, and your work capacity is probably super high. So when you hop under a barbell for classic strength training, you're going to be bringing a lot of firepower to that type of program. So that's really cool.
Awesome. Yes.
I was going to ask you, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? I mean, it's kind of, you started to answer that. Like, or maybe even, let's go longer. Where do you want to be when you're like 70 or 80? What's your vision for like a deep future? Your kids are getting married, so 20 years from now or something like that. How do you see yourself? Where are you at? What's life like for you?
Man, that's a great question. It's funny, going through the changes that I've gone through over the past year. One of the big changes is financial changes. So I'm kind of restarting financially. So I've been finding myself going to a lot of retirement calculators, and in a lot of these calculators, you have to kind of determine what is your lifespan. And I think by default, one of them is 95. I'm like, I better push that down. There's 95. That's too long. And now I'm like, maybe I should keep it here. Lord willing, I'm going to try my very best. So I'm going to make sure that I have the money, the financial resources to be able to live to 95 and beyond. And I'm going to do my darndest to ensure that I do that. So I think physically, the physical perspective is I want to be that dude that walks into a room or wherever and you're like, holy crap, this guy's 90 years old, like a Jack LaLanne type of guy.
Yeah.
And just doing it, I want to continue doing it smart. I want to continue, I will be a lifelong member. This is my plan for life. Mm-hmm. I am not jumping ship. This is, it has everything that I need to live a long, healthy life. All right, so physically, I'm going to be in great shape. Financially, with, and I'm just projecting here, with the mindset changes that I'm going to be working on, I'm going to continue being the best employee that I can, looking for opportunities to advance my career, whether it's with the current company I'm with now, or with another company, and just allow myself to overcome those dragons and just look into that shadow, bring out everything that I've been subconsciously battling, and just overcome that, and just really become the best version of myself, regardless of what age I'm at.
Nice.
And really just ultimately just give it to the Lord and do what I can, and Lord willing, if I do have a long life, it's going to be a healthy one.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
I'd say I share the exact same vision for my future too. Healthy and spry and inspirational into old age, continuing into financial abundance that's fueled by personal growth and service. Yeah, that is beautiful desires that I share with you. Awesome. Completely. Now, some advice for guys who are maybe starting out in your phase of the game, and maybe specifically advice for guys who are going through a big life transition point now too, because there's many guys who start in this program who, have, spouses or stability, and they're not making changes in multiple domains of life like you are. So advice for guys starting out who have a lot of energy moving on a lot of different fronts of life. What would you say?
I would just say, realize that it is attainable. I'm an average basic guy who's going through a lot, which we all have, whether it's physical challenges, divorce, marital conflict, whatever it is. You really have to want to do it. And I think going back to the very beginning of the program, writing out your why statement. I think that really is the critical thing, because if you don't have the why you want to do this, then it's not going to happen. You're going to just continue to look for excuses, look for reasons, look for other magic pills or workouts. But I would definitely encourage you to find your why and really reflect on what it is. So for me, it was to get in better shape, so that way, I can continue playing and having a great time with my kids while they're still young. I want to be able to attend my daughter's wedding and walk down the aisle and be able to dance freely and be silly, and same thing with my son's wedding. So I really just, whether it's that's really my main motivation as a father. I just want to be in the best shape that I can. So really just find your why, whatever that why is, and just keep that at the forefront as you go through the program. Yeah. If you do have excuses, just life happens, but if you can't make a workout, if you kind of get off track on the diet, then you have tomorrow. Today, just live in day-tight compartments, as Dale Carnegie says, live in day-tight compartments. You may fail, but remember that you can get right back on and continue, on the next day. And I think I would also encourage members to really take advantage of the Brotherhood community. I think that's really what separates this program, because before I was isolated. I'm kind of a private guy. I don't like working out with people, and I still work out by myself. But having that brotherhood, you can kind of see guys that are just starting, guys that are with you, and guys that have been veterans that are constantly contributing to the Facebook group. And one of the things that I love about it is social media gets a bad rap, and rightfully so. I really stay off Facebook because I just people complain and all this stuff. But man, this is a beautiful community that I don't think have not seen any negative discussion or putting people down. It's so contrary to what we experience in social media. So this is just definitely take advantage, ask questions, contribute if you can, or just kind of glean the wisdom and knowledge that people are posting.
That's powerful answers all over the board. A couple things that stood out to me that I just think are really cool to highlight. Obviously, you're sharing about the why and connecting to that, and oftentimes that means bringing the future into the present through the reflection process, the mission statement, even the Unbreakable guide that you're working through right now. That's awesome. And then 2, you said something about like mentally start to work in compartments and chunks.
Yes.
Like take it a day at a time, even a meal at a time. But like that's so freeing because, and I'll share, this is a little bit my personal faith, but like I believe that we're set up on God's natural law with cycles. We have the daily cycle, the 24-hour cycle, and if we start to tune into that, knowing that we can align ourselves and try to win this day. And if it doesn't go great, we have a new fresh start the next day. So it's like we can start to purify ourselves by working in those increments. And then, of course, the fellowship and the goodness that you can find inside our community and groups is like kind of like the magic X factor that we're not in this alone. There are other people, behind us or ahead of us that we can glean inspiration and support from. And I think that a rising tide brings up all ships, and that's certainly what I see in the Brotherhood. And the coolest thing is it's not like we filter out negative comments. It's just like the vibe of the group is everyone is positive and here to live like a healthy, values-based life and to lift each other up. And I think it's a privilege to witness and to be a part of. And I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, definitely. And I think it reminds me of one of the things in your discussion with Connor was the lone wolf mentality. I think we're just so ingrained to be independent. I don't have to share anything. I don't want to share anything with you. It's my private business. And that's fine. But I think if you really want to be successful, I think it is imperative, not only in fitness, but in other areas of your life, to let your guard down. And that's what I'm learning how to do. I'm learning how to let my guard down, to be exposed, to be, just be humble and vulnerable in physical, through the workouts, through other areas of my life. And that's something that, I really see the need for, is to be able to have other brothers, whether it's in this community or brothers through my church, or my friends, to have that group.
I so agree with you. And like I actually got chills when you said that about the word that came to mind was vulnerability, which I think is the lone wolf, at least if we take that as an idea, would be someone who can completely independently strong, doesn't need anyone else, but it almost kind of implies that little chip on the shoulder. And the vulnerability aspect, I believe, is what loops back to what you said in the very beginning, is to be vulnerable, you must recognize your shadow. You must be able to see truly those parts of yourself that are painful, dark, that have been compartmentalized. And then to be vulnerable is to be able to bring light onto those, and even so to bring other people into seeing that light. And I think that also brings you closer to God in the process, because it brings you closer to truth. And when you get closer to truth through your own self-examination, man, you're on the path of like honesty, and I would say even righteousness, because like when you can see things clearly, now you can make changes. Now you can make new decisions from a clear vantage point, and now you're more open. I think this idea, these dimensions of opening up to life or constricting and hiding in, pain is constricting. Fear is constricting, where this expansionary energy is kind of like it's loving, open, new possibilities. And I just think you're dancing so clearly with these dynamics, and it's fun to be able to use your life experience here on this powerful conversation to show people these themes that are running in the background that we're not always conscious of, but you certainly are, because you're intentional about this work. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable in this podcast, sharing everything you did. It means a lot to me, and I know it's going to mean a lot to many guys who are listening to this.
Excellent. Yes.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Chris. I appreciate you tremendously for being a part of our Brotherhood. I wish you so much success into the future. I'm so grateful you're a lifetime member, because we have a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline to continue to keep you engaged and interested. And this is my invitation to you. After you do, let's just fast forward a year, 2 years, and you've run through all the phases of OSM, I would love to have you back on to have a follow-up conversation about what it's been like for you at that phase. You'll be one of our veterans at that point.
Yes.
And to hear about how you've transformed even more into that next phase, I'm so looking forward to that.
Excellent. I would be honored to do that. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.